JB, Wendell, you ready?
Yep.
We're gonna go ahead and get started. Week 4 of our unspoken conversations, topics that people don't really discuss in public or outside of the hotel room at the Final Four or beyond the locker room or a pregame meal amongst inner coaches. Just trying to get the knowledge of our coaches, what we like to call EPIC, right? Educating professionals and integrating cultures. Really trying to find a way to get our coaches educated on how the black race may integrate with the white race and the minorities may grow in order to make our student athletes the best they can be and make ourselves the best that we can be. And this week, our topic will be the dynamics of the racial makeup of an assistant coach. A lot of times we talk of how the black coach can be considered the recruiting coordinator, the recruiting coach, how the white coach can be considered the X's and O's coach, and just the male perspective on the female side, and then the thought process on the male side with John. So we have today with us first John Bowler, who will be one of our hosts. He got his bachelor's degree and graduated from Eastern Michigan. I was fortunate enough to play with John my freshman year. He was a heck of a basketball player on the floor. John averaged 20 and 10 his senior year. Spent 7 seasons overseas. Had a great career in the highest leagues, international. He started his coaching career as a graduate assistant at Delta 2013 to 2014. And then he spent 5 years at Des Moines area community college. And one of those years, he was the head coach. From there, this past year, he's been an assistant at the University of Milwaukee and has had a lot of success, which most of us as coaches know. We say early in his coaching career, I only think he hit the 10-year mark, but has really propelled in the profession fast beyond basketball. Our second speaker will be Wendell Farrell. Me and Wendell is similar to me and John. I had John on the beginning of my career, and I had Wendell towards the end of my career. Wendell is from Sacramento, California. He was a junior college All-American, played 2 years at American River in California, and then he finished his last 2 years at Eastern Michigan. He got his master's degree from Eastern Michigan, and then he has had, like, knowing him personally and looking over his resume, he has a magnificent resume. 2010 and 2012, he was at Eastern Michigan as a graduate assistant. 2012 to 2013, he was at the University of Michigan as an academic mentor. 2013 to 2015, he went to UCLA. And at UCLA, he was kind of the utility guy. He was the video coordinator. He was the community service liaison. He was a scout team advisor. He was the camp director. And he was the interim recruiting coach. After his time at UCLA, he went to Vanderbilt for a year from 2005 to 2016. And then after leaving Vanderbilt, he has been at Cal as an assistant the last 4 seasons. The thing that I think is most unique about both John and Wendell is that when you pull up their bios at their current institutions, both of them say how they're great recruiters. And this creates a unique dynamic because obviously John's white. So to see that, it gives you a perspective on how you can really eliminate race from recruiting kids and relating to people and finding a way to be successful. So I'll let them go and introduce themselves. I have a couple questions for them as they're talking, explaining their background, explaining their thought process on the topic. Feel free to put comments or questions in the chat, and then we'll come back on the back end and address those questions as we go. So I guess, Wendell, you got into the profession first on the shirt and tie side. So we'll let you be the first speaker, and then John, you'll follow up.
Yeah. Appreciate the opportunity, Lou, man, John as well, and everybody, in here. So we kind of lay the foundation, I guess, for the conversation, and then we'll go from there. So I guess the topic is talking about essentially the white X&O guy versus the black recruiter, correct? And those stigmas and those perceptions have gone on for a very long time. And as you work as an assistant, you hear that, but you want to seek, obviously, to dispel that. And like, how can you do that among the structure that we have now? When you think of that, you have to understand that, like, the structure that is in place, that reinforces these stereotypes starts at the highest level. So essentially, when you look at your boss and their boss, they start off traditionally as white males in power positions, whether it be the AD, it might be the president, it might be the chancellor. Then they hire like-minded people in the next leadership position, which would be an athletic director. The athletic directors hire white males that are head coaches, and then you fill your staff. So as a young Black professional, as you're trying to get in, you're trying to find a way to bring value. And the way you bring value is initially is that I can relate to kids. I could be a bridge builder. I can see kids for you, coach, and I would do that. And then you come to a crossroads eventually in your career where you get stuck and ask yourself, is that the only thing that I can do? So as I've learned through my short career is that I've had people alongside me that's helped facilitate my growth to look beyond just recruiting, whether it be X's and O's, whether it be leadership and administration roles and coaching positions. So I'm really thankful for the mentors that I've had that haven't pigeonholed me to just think on those terms. I think it's important to understand that when you are doing this business and you are assistant coach, that you should never process those things anyway. Like I don't see myself as an X and O guy, nor do I see myself as a recruiter. I see myself as a transformational coach. And I think that lens that goes beyond the lens of just coaching. I want to be in my players' lives from the time I recruit them at 15, 16 until they're married at 40 and 50. So that's just kind of like the groundwork of the thought we're talking about today. But John, if you want to kind of scoop in and further those points.
Yeah, just kind of building a little bit of what you're talking about. I think one of the huge things in society that we've seen over the past few days is a lot of talking of what leadership looks like currently, what it is going to be in the future, how we change our mindset and our just our stereotypes and what are things that are hold us back. And there's so many different ways to go about it and combat it. A few of the things that like over the last few weeks, I've kind of started to think about is, just your current state is who you are as a coach yourself. That's where we can all start. What am I? Am I a recruiter? Am I X's and O's guy? Am I this? Am I that? And then focus on what your strengths are versus what your weaknesses. So personally, I'm sure a lot of people see Wendell or myself in some sort of light on the outside. But if we can change what we are on the inside, personally, professionally, and all those other things, then it starts to spill over into other places. So you can't come out and just say, hey, I'm going to be a well-rounded coach, but then the entire time spend your entire time on recruiting, like kind of building on what Wendell is saying a little bit. So I would focus on your current state. Who are you right now? What you can do to strengthen those weaknesses, what you can do to double down on your strengths, but how can you prove your worth as a well-rounded person?
Yeah. That's a good point, John. Obviously, like you want to provide value for your institution. That's something I learned, early on, that your job is to serve others and provide value. That's all it is. Serve your bosses, serve your players, and give them the information and the skills that they need to be better basketball players and coaches. And I truly believe that the more that you help people, you help yourself. The more you invest in them and watch them grow, it only builds you up, adds to your resume, and they reflect upon you very, very well. So I really try to take a step back when I think about these conversations, whether it be about X's and O's or recruiting, and analyze who I am as a person. I truly believe who you are as a person translates to the person that you are as a coach. If you have bad habits as a person, you're going to have the same bad habits as a coach. You take the shortcuts to work, you're going to take the shortcuts in the gym. So you have to be able to be holistically the person you want to be the coach that you want to grow into as well.
Yeah, and then just even more so, that next level is that starts to spill out when you present yourself as that person on a daily basis and you're authentic with who you are, then people start to notice. And it's the people who notice down the hall, maybe not necessarily in our offices, that start to change those things from a leadership standpoint. Because at the end of the day, like we've talked about it on this actual the Rising Coaches, the social justice one, there have been coaches that have been for a long time put into that role, into that niche where it's like, you are a recruiting guy, go out and recruit, and that's all I expect you to talk about. Like, if those are the things that are seen within your personality and what you're asked to do, and you don't want to step outside of your box and you continue to do that, then it leads to a point where everybody else is going to continue to see you that way as well. from my standpoint, I've been lucky enough to be considered a good recruiter. I think I could still even go further. Being at the JUCO level, I think that puts you at um, a place where you get to be around so many people of different cultures. And obviously, I grew up with it playing. You know, Travis and I are fairly close, and growing up being around him, and he couldn't be from a more different background than what I'm from. But being a player, you get that feeling. But then when you coach at levels that are outside your comfort zone, um, I never played junior college basketball. I didn't know. You know, I didn't know what it was like. And then I have to go into inner city Chicago and take a kid from there, bring him to Iowa, and see if he can figure out life in Iowa, which is going to be very different for him. So those things allow me to start to see outside the box, to start to relate to different people, to start to do other things. And if I would have just said, no, I'm just going to be an X's and O guy and I'm a recruit Iowa, well, then I'm not changing anything. I'm continuing the same stereotype that I would be doing and that other people would be doing. So I like to focus on going out and recruiting and being X's and O's and being well-rounded, like kind of what you were talking about, Wendell.
Yeah, it's some of these things they go beyond your control. Something like how John said, sometimes you're put in those boxes, and it's your job to fulfill those boxes for your boss, excuse me, because you are essentially the bridge builder, the relationship builder when you recruit these kids. You take a kid to your boss and you make it work. That is your job. But you hopefully will come across bosses that are essentially, like the terms they're using today, allies or co-conspirators, people that are helping you within your fight to extend your career to the highest level. I've had some really, really good bosses. When I started at UCLA as a video coordinator, Coach Corey was giving me the opportunity right away to be an assistant. Like, she was thinking one step ahead for me, and she was giving me all the responsibility. So when I became an assistant, I'd be accustomed to that. Then I got to Vanderbilt and worked for Coach Melanie, and she gave me the vision of what it's like to be a good assistant and potentially a head coach. Right? She was giving me responsibility on writing practices. I'm doing breakdown drills. I'm doing the offenses and those type of things. And then when I got hired at Cal by Lindsay actually helped me actualize it, gave me tangible steps and markers to kind of work towards that will put me in a position in the next few years to be a head coach. So it's very important that your mentors are good leaders because they're a big part of your process as an assistant coach.
Yeah, and I think some of these stereotypes as well hold just everyone back in general. I think right now, looking at the landscape of college basketball, there are so few black head coaches based on the percentage of black players that we coach. I mean, let's be honest, like the percentage of population of what color the players are is very different than what they are as head coach. And I think a lot of that is when ADs look to hire, they go, oh no, he's just a recruiter, or he's just this, or he's just that. And it's unfortunate because realistically, I personally work for a black head coach. I have 2 black assistants. Both of those guys that I work with are ready to be head coaches. They just get, unfortunately, and I've had this conversation with one of them that he's put into a box as he's supposed to be a guy who gets players, and that's what's holding him back right now. Is not necessarily whether he's ready or not; it's whether somebody can see him for who he truly is.
Yeah, and that's tough, John. You're right, because if you look at all levels of organization, you see that as well. Whether you're the CEO at Google and who hires the manager to be another white male, or you're the president who hires a cabinet of people that look like you as well. We understand that, like, in this social climate, that like people have come to be accustomed to hiring people that look like them, that think like them, and have the same banter as them as well, right? So you even see that when you do have black head coaches, they hire a black staff because they want people to have that opportunity, but also who could think, communicate, and relationship build in the manner that they do. As we move forward in this, this profession, it's important to like really have a global aspect of what's going on, right? Are we watching what's going on TV? Are we understanding those social issues? Because they'll all play a part to our sport and our teams. And I think that we're really at a point where like we're trying to turn the corner and be more inclusive and have more well-rounded staff and leaders, but it's going to take a very, very long time. The structure of the NCAA is built in a certain way, and it's not going to be deconstructed overnight. But if any of you all are in a position where you are a leader, to make sure that you are inclusive and you have diverse staffs and friends, and do your best to try to, be the fight yourself.
Yeah, and go ahead, Trev.
Just to go, John just proposed a great scenario for you, Wendell, and I kind of want to get your take on it and see how you overcome the stereotype of only being considered the recruiter. Um, Two black assistants, one's been put in a box as only being the recruiter, even though he has the ability to be a great X and O guy. As a black male, he can't overcome being just a recruiter. And you talked about you being groomed and being pushed along by your leaders in order to groom you as a head coach. What things or what strategies or what ways can you overcome only being considered a recruiter and show that you have X's and O's ability as an assistant at the Power 5 level that you at?
That's a really good question, and it's a loaded question, to be honest. So if I ramble a little bit, I apologize. I think you have to affirm yourself. I think the things that you say to yourself, the things that you do will help you equip yourself to bring these ideas to your boss, to show them. Like, I've been a person since I've been a GA that's always created buckets. I go to sports code and I just watch film. I'll watch a lot of YouTube. I cut it and I put it in my bucket. And I have different styles. I have different sets, offensive, defense. So when I take this bucket with me to every institution, I have something for a coach that they may want, or something they may need, or something they have not seen before. And once I got that trust from my bucket, I start pouring more and more and more in and create that trust with my coach. So you must have to, in a sense, be there before you get there. Prepare yourself for those opportunities, because you're only gonna get a few. And when you do, you want to make sure that you hit it out the park. And then secondly, you have to build enough rapport with your boss, or have a certain line of communication to be able to ask for certain responsibilities. It's hard for a head coach to relinquish their responsibilities to younger coaches, or maybe somebody who's viewed in one way. But if you are open, honest, and upfront and have their opportunity, then you'll be able to succeed and hopefully prove that you can do that. If not, then you have to understand, as an assistant, I need to work for somebody that my goals and their goals align for what we want to do together, for our program, for themselves, and for me personally as an assistant coach. But there's a lot of work that you have to do behind the scenes. I love video. It's my favorite thing. And I'm always cutting. I'm always sharing ideas. I'm always calling my mentors, trying to get the newest trends or fads or whatever in basketball to present to my boss. Because I want to know that I'm an information seeker, that I ask people that has been successful and ask people that have done things at a very high level. And I'm bringing it to them on our program so we can do it at a high level.
JB, I want to flip it and just get your perspective from the white male side. Obviously, you've developed a reputation for being a great recruiter. You've been a head coach at the JUCO level, and you've had a chance to hire coaches around you. So hypothetically, you're in a better position to become a head coach before Wendell, because you're already considered an X's and O's guy because you're white, and you have a reputation from being a recruiter. How does that change your mindset in the day-to-day activity, given the stereotype or the bias, to help you stay diverse and help you put yourself in a position where you feel like you're earning what you're getting, and it's not just because, hey, I'm a white guy?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question, and I think there's a lot to it. I think the biggest thing for me is what I always try to focus on is myself. Like I talked about that current state. What's your current? I can't, unfortunately, change anybody's mindset on who I am, but I can try on a daily basis to pursue my well-roundedness. I can't necessarily say that I would be in a worse situation because I have that head coaching experience and because I am white. Let's be honest, white coaches are hired more than black coaches. It's just that simple. It is what it is. I unfortunately can't switch that in any way, shape, or form, but what I can do is I can continue to, like what Wendell has mentioned about, continue to promote from within. Like Lindsay obviously gave him an opportunity to develop who he is. If I'm at a point where I can become a head coach at any level, and I was at DMAC, I'm going to hire appropriately. And that doesn't mean hire just to hire anybody. There's well-qualified people of every race and every color in this sport, no matter where you're going to find them. I mean, you look at the NBA itself, it's the most international sport besides soccer. And the NBA is absolutely an international organization. It has men and women coaching it in it. It has multiple points of origin wherever you're born. Like you're going to be able to find somebody qualified enough to work for you. The question is are you willing to step outside your box, give somebody a chance that you may not know personally, right? And then that person can lead to being the next head coach. Because let's be honest, I may not be able to change that administrator's mind, but I can maybe help put somebody on my staff that is going to be in a better situation to get a job later on. And I think that's kind of a lot of what Wendell was talking about a little bit with the people that he was able to have. And that's kind of my focus in the long run.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
To actually answer part of the question that went towards John is like, I think about that too as well, right? To see, I know that I have white counterparts that may get promoted or may get recognized or may get hired before me, whether that be based off race, whatever. But I think it's important for each coach to understand that like you must like bloom where you're planted. Like I'm never looking over my shoulder at another assistant at a different program because their journey and their trajectory is different from mine, as my path is. I probably got to a position above someone else and then they may get somewhere above me. And like your focus solely should be on the things that you're doing for your career, your program, and your institution. And then like the right things generally work out. If you do the job well and you are professional and you seek the right leaders and mentors, you'll get to get where you need to get to. And it might be a different time frame. John may be a head coach in the next 5 years. For me, it might be 7 to 10, but eventually we'll be at the same rank.
Yeah, I hope so.
And not to say that one will get a head coach, hypothetically thinking, and just trying to create some dialogue. I'm gonna ask one more question to John and then open it up to the audience and start asking questions. I want it to be a conversation. I want it to be authentic. I want it to be genuine. For John, as a white assistant who's developed a reputation for being a great recruiter, what methods or tactics do you use when going out to recruit? Like what makes you good at your craft?
I think the authenticity is number one. Like if you are authentic, no matter where you go, people are going to realize that. And that's middle class and below. Like those are the people, they're the salt of the earth people. And let's be honest, that's a lot of what, populates college basketball and basketball in general are people of those demographics. They're going to smell if you are not authentic. And so I think part of it is just, I am who I am. Like I walk into every house the same way, no matter what it is. And I'm just going to be me. And I think that there's a level of no matter what I like, whether it's the same music, the same movies, the same whatever, I think there's a level of respect that somebody gives you when you are authentic and you're just yourself. So I think that there's too many people that try to, pander or be around other people that are just not them. And they try to do something different than who they are or be something different than what they are. And I think people in general just really have an appreciation and affinity for people who are authentic. So when I walk into whatever house it is, no matter where it's at, and I've been lucky enough to be around multiple backgrounds from my playing experience, I just try to be who I am every day on a daily basis. And I think that there's a lot of people that they relate to that.
Wendell,
Yep.
How have you found your niche to be successful on the women's side? And when I say successful, it's just not mediocre success. I know as humble as you may be, but you have been in a Power 5 conference since 3 years getting into the coaching side. And a lot of people would love to take the same career path that you took. And so we often talk about like, what was your path? How do you get there? We know every coaching path is different, but what have you found things that have made you become successful, that has made you strive? Because there is a stigma also on the women's side that it's easier for guys on the women's side than it is for the men's side. And I mean, we've had our conversations, so I just wanted you to elaborate and go into more of those areas.
Nah, if we just talking, like I'm me, bro. Like the energy and enthusiasm what I pride myself on. When I'm in your home, when I'm in your gym, when I'm coaching you, I'm turned up, I'm teed up. And kids like that, and coaches recognize that. So when I'm in a support staff position at UCLA and my boss know I have the ear of the kids, she knows that she needs to have my ear as well because I'm bridging that gap. She has that, I have that trust between those two. So I'm bringing them together so we all work in harmony. So that's one thing. It's just a characteristic that I always pride myself on. Like I always want to bring energy and enthusiasm to a program. Like you have to understand how hard it is to work around people every single day. And some people are moody, some people are mopey, some people had their head down. Like, nah, bro, like we here, we in this building, and I want to bring that presence, and people are attracted to that. So like outside of X's, those recruiter, I think that character I really try to embody is that energy and enthusiasm. And then like I said earlier, like your network and opportunity have to align with your skill in the building, right? The people that I know that are giving me opportunity have to really go like coincide with my ability. So when I first got my job at Vanderbilt, my boss felt that I was very capable to coach at any level, although it's unusual to go from a video coordinator to a BCS Power 5 school. But the opportunity that my boss wanted at Vanderbilt is she wanted a young coach. She called me, she said, Dale, you have a one-page resume. I've never seen a one-page resume in my career, and I've been here 15 years. But that's exactly what I want. I want to groom a coach, teach them. I don't want you to ask any questions your first week. I just want you to listen. I was like, I could do that, right? And I did that at a high enough level where it put me in a position now when Cal had an opening, I can apply for that and have a chance for that. But I've been, like I said, I've had really, really good mentors who have opened doors for me, and I've been very fortunate for them to open those doors. And like, I want to like kind of dispel it's easier to move up on the women's side, because what we do, bro, is not the same. Me and John work in basketball, but we do not work in the same business. It is not the same. I guarantee you he's not making TikToks like I am for recruits. He ain't sending playlists. Like, we work in a whole different business model. So when I see people ask me that question, like you don't want to work in what I work in. You want to work in basketball, but the business of what I want to work in, like that's not built for you. It's much, much different. Secondly, do you want to coach kids who are catching lobs and dunking that thing, or airball layups sometimes at Nike Nationals? It's a totally different brand of things. We have really, really high level girls, but I distinctly want to work with these women. I chose not to work with men. I like come from a background of strong women. So therefore I'm influenced to help and mobilize their careers. So like, it's not necessarily easier to move up. There's a lot less positions of men of color on our side. So when we do move up, it looks more visible than it really, really is. So we're all putting the work in, but it's much different. And, you know, we don't even get paid the same. So like, I could work here, but the men's coaches next door make twice as what I make. So it's not the same business in any aspect.
Good insight. And John, I'm gonna go back to you because I think before we start asking questions, I want people to really understand your mindset. See, I played with you, and we've been around basketball together for a long time. So I'll tell a story, and hopefully it's not offensive to you, John. But John was a 20-10 guy in college. He was first team All-MAC. And we had an intimate conversation. He was like, you know, the most frustrating part for me in my career is that I actually had an agent tell me if I was black, I'd get a chance in the league, right? So John was on the other side of this stigma of the white coaches, the X's and O's guy, because we all want to understand that we know basketball from a player's perspective. And now he's had a lot of success from a coaching perspective. And to me, I think a lot of that comes from having a powerful mindset and a powerful makeup. So if you could just talk about some of the things that motivate you as a coach, John, from if it's a recruiting standpoint, if it's an X and O standpoint, if it's just grinding every day. I know one of your goals is the same as one of my goals, is that you want to coach in the NCAA Final Four. So just having those things, the things that push you and drive you to be successful in your realm of the profession.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I think that used to frustrate me a lot more than it does now, because at the end of the day, like as athletes, we always, and you and I had a lot of the same mindset at times, Trav, but we always hated being told that we couldn't do something as an athlete. Like you're going to tell me I can't do it? I'm going to find a way to do it right now. So, so I think at that moment, it kind of frustrated me more. As I moved on, it started to fade, because at the end of the day, it's one person's opinion. And I think that's a lot of the things that when I got into coaching, I started to realize, you know, you almost had to kill a little bit of the player in you to become a coach. You know, like as a high level player, I had so many things that like I would do that would just get me going. Like I was a kind of guy, you know me, I played really hard. Like I do anything dirty, all the dirty work I got done, right? As much as I could. But then, you know, I had to eliminate and take away some of the emotion once I got to coaching, because it's a lot more of an analytical, it's a logical, you know, those things. as a player, I always was like, I want to beat the guy next to me who's on the other team. I want to beat him. I was always worried about the next guy coming up. I was always worried about those things. As a coach, like a lot of that stuff in your office, you don't want to compete with another assistant next to you. The people who compete with their assistants that are coaching with them or under them are the programs that really struggle. You want to work together. And so a lot of that stuff I had to kind of move away from, but just in general, as the coaching side of it, it's been so different than as I was a player, because I was always told, like, you're not going to be this, or you're not going to be that, or you're playing the wrong sport, or you're doing this. But realistically, like, we were playing a game. Like, we were playing a game. Now I'm in a different realm where I'm coaching a game. This is my profession, and it's affecting lives differently than necessarily me playing. So I think that this stereotype and these things that we're talking about now are much, much more impactful than maybe the one that was put onto me, if that makes sense. Just kind of that realm that people are put into, that are held back, that have this glass ceiling in areas that they shouldn't have, is much more detrimental than anything that I ever went through. There's no doubt about it.
I think a lot of that has made you a great coach, because you have that fight type mindset. And I just wanted to express that to everyone who was listening. Let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Mendel, you had a question. See if you you can unmute. So go ahead and you can ask your question.
All right, John, you talk about the two assistants that are in the that are basically put in that box. So I listened to that. I was wondering, is there, in you guys' viewpoint, is there a point where is there a point to walk away from a position without hurting your career in the long term? How do you fight out of that box without hurting your career?
See, I don't necessarily think that it's unfortunate, because I don't think that the people that put them in that box are the ones that they work with on a daily basis. I think we all see him for who they are. I think it's the people that don't get to see who they are on a daily basis that put them in that. And personally, I think the only way that they break that is from within. So I don't think there is a need for them to ever walk away, because they can continue to build who they are. The biggest thing that we've all been told from day one in sports is winning solves everything. If you win games, it don't matter. You're going to get a shot. Like Wendell said, unfortunately now it may take him longer than me. The same way that I'm in a room with two other guys in the same office, and if we win games, I may for some reason be put on a pedestal because of my head coaching experience and because I'm white, which is unfortunate. Whereas those other two guys, one of them has unbelievable resume and a ton of recruiting experience and long-term coaching experience and success. But, I don't think that they need to walk away. I think it's more of a continue to build and branch out. And like Wendell said, like, find that network so that when the opportunity arises, your network and your ability match. Because there is ability. Trust me, there's a ton of really, really great Black coaches that are just waiting to get hired. There are. The same way there's a bunch of white coaches that are. So I think just building from within, staying within it, continuing to build up, and when that opportunity is there, just make sure you're ready and you're ready to get it.
And just wanted to clarify that, not so much walking away from the profession, but more so walking away from the position and go somewhere else where you can work. Just wanted to clarify that. So is that coming off as I'm walking away from the profession as a whole?
Yeah.
For sure.
Mendel, to be honest, like you could choose to do whatever you want to do. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be beneficial or detrimental to your career. When you felt like you said you're in a box and you're trying to seek other opportunities, well, you don't know if you're going to go into another box. Like you don't know what the other program has for you. So I think, like I said earlier, it's very important to align your next steps with your goal and your vision. Like, are you really thoroughly taking jobs that are helping you get to where you want to get to? Like, I've had opportunities, fortunate enough, like calls and stuff, but like not every school, no matter the logo or gym, is going to help you get where you want to be. And that's a lot of that's contingent upon the person that you work for. And if I didn't work for Lindsay and Charmin, my current boss now, or Corey or Mel, I wouldn't be in the position I've been in. So I've been super fortunate, but I'm not going to walk away and go work at University of whatever, Buford, just because I'm in a different box, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And if your new boss is aligning your goals with theirs.
Appreciate you, gentlemen.
Good. Any other questions? If you got questions, just unmute yourself or put it in the chat.
I got a question.
Yeah,
Would you say, so you mentioned, I think it was Coach Bowler, he mentions that take a risk and hire somebody that's not, inside your circle, but would you say that's kind of one of the biggest issues in college basketball, is a sense that guys only hire within their circles, like it's all about who you know, and some of these guys don't necessarily have the most diverse inner circles, like everybody in their circle looks the same. So the question of kind of breaking that stigma of hiring who you know, but necessarily taking that risk on somebody you don't know, because everybody mentions on these job websites that Division I jobs are posted and that person's already hired. So you necessarily don't give that chance to somebody that you could take a risk on it. It could be a home run hire. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work out, but would you say that's kind of a big issue as well?
Not to just jump in and bully and answer right away, but like there's two things. One, I think going back to what Wendell said, and I think that's perfect. Everybody should take this from here, that network and ability should match your opportunity. Because there's a lot of times that people get offended because that job's already done. But if you look at the person that they end up hiring, they actually have a ton more experience than probably anybody in the business, let alone a few people. I do think that there is an issue that people want to strictly only hire within their circle. But then I guess my counter question is, to answer your question with a question, is their circle's got to be some sort of Black players at some point. They coach some Black player. Like, how is that person not in their circle? That's why I think if you've done it for long enough, there's no way you have not run into somebody that you can't trust that is African American or Black. There's just not. And or somebody that's maybe on another staff that you know long enough. Like, I mean, I could probably name 30 different people right now that I've run into, and I'm not even that far along in my career, that are not the same color as me, that are not in my quote unquote inner circle, but I know them and I know that they do a really good job with where they're at. So, I think it is a problem, but I think it's only to a point, because I think that there are people in those inner circles that they could hire, that they could bring up, that they could promote from within, but they potentially choose not to. And I'll tell you one thing that I've heard, and I guarantee there's a lot of people that have heard this before, and it's kind of one of those faux pas, but like, I couldn't tell you how many times I talked to a coach about a job and they're like, well, I got to hire somebody who's Black. Well, don't tell me that. Tell me you have to hire somebody who's qualified enough and make that person Black. Don't give me a reason that doesn't make sense. You can hire any Black person for any spot on your staff. You can hire all 3 Black people if you want. But the fact that you have coaches now who literally think, okay, I'm going to have 1 Black guy, and then I'm going to hire 2 white dudes, and then I'm going to hire 1 other white person, and then I'm going to do 1 Black player development guy. Like,
why is that? Why is that mindset? Wendell or John, why is that mindset?
Because that's always been the mindset of hiring. Like, if we want to take it there, like, let's go back 400 years and see who have run plantations and organizations and governments and all those things. Like-minded people and like-colored people hire the same, because that's where their trust and their values and trust, and they trust those people more. You look at like educational studies, and they say that like how white students perform better than Black students, and they don't take into account where these kids go to school, their home life, those type of things. So therefore, white people have information, so white is right to them, right? Or like, even when we recruit, like, you got to think about it. We see a player like, oh, he's athletic, man, he can move, he can dunk. We know what we're talking about. Oh, that guy's IQ, he's disciplined, he can shoot it. We know exactly what we're talking about, right? Like, we use those code words now still to describe that, and still like, so we have to confront those things as we move forward, as we talked about earlier, and try to be inclusive. But it's always been the system, not just in basketball, but in all walks of life and organizations and institutions.
John, your thoughts on why?
No, I mean, I would agree with Wendell. I mean, on the majority of what he said. I mean, there, like Tick Price said it, and I believe it was in the social justice reform one that we were in here on. But Tick Price said when he first got into business, they gave him a stipend check and told him go find players and don't come back, and he was gone for 4 weeks. Like I mean, this is just how it's always been. And until we have coaches who continue to change that mindset, until we have coaches on, not just black coaches that are hiring black people, white coaches that are hiring black people, and trusting them, until we change that mindset, I mean, unfortunately, it's just how it is, because it's a system that we have not changed personally.
And you look at what helps right now. What helps is Anthony Grant and Don Staley,
Yes.
National Coaches of the Year, right? They're proving that no matter who you are, you can coach. And I can coach the right way, and my teams don't just play a certain way. We can adapt. We are smart as well. We can shoot the ball as well. We can perform. So as we move forward and we have those people in leadership positions, it's super important to see my other colleagues that are black to perform well, because then that gives an AD a trust factor to hire another black person, right? I don't know how many times a black person has been hired and another black person has been, a black person has been fired and another black person has been hired right after them. Like, we don't get the retreads. We don't get those opportunities. So I need my colleagues to perform at a very, very high level, and they're doing that right now. So hopefully we can sustain that, whether it's, like I said, Anthony, Don, Leonard Hamilton, whoever it is, they could really push that envelope forward because of their performance.
I want to go away from race and go to gender, and more so for you, Wendell. Is this a problem on the women's side? Is it the black or the white hire, or is it the male or the female hire?
Yeah, because the black and white thing, essentially, because it all goes back to the people that are in leadership positions that make the hires are still white. They're the white ADs, the white chancellors, the white presidents, all those. So they still hire generally white head coaches. I'm a minority by race, but I'm also a minority by gender on my side as well. So there's some challenges with that, but I'll also have some privileges too. Like, I've been able to fill roles on staff, and I can't hide that, and I'm thankful for it. But I would say that, like, in the hiring process on both sides, you're going to see some bias.
So you can agree that there has been times where a coach has told you, I have to hire a female, or I have to hire a male for this position.
There's been times where, like, they not necessarily they have to, is what they want. They understand the figure that they had on their staff and what works for their players, and how that worked with me. When I got hired at Cal, I followed a black male, but I didn't do my interview more so with Lindsay as much as I did with the players. Like, of course, we went through the process and we had a really good day. But the one thing she said, like, you're going to coach for my players. I want you to spend time with them. So it was me and 3 of our players, and we were in the locker room just chilling, listening to music, and just going back and forth like we are here. And I asked them what they wanted, and they said distinctly, like, we want a male on the staff. I think that'd be beneficial for us. And they relate that to Lindsay, in addition to what Lindsay already knew. So I ended up falling in that fold. But sometimes it can hurt me a little bit, but it's definitely helped me at the places I've been.
I got a question. Just piggybacking on what you guys were talking about before, Coach Lewis brought up the men, women. Let's just say, when you made those points in regard to not being just a recruiter, so you were doing analytical work, you were bringing certain things to your boss, but you are doing a really good job recruiting. Like, you're at Cal, let's say you bring in two kids that are top 50. It seems like the recruiting will always hold the more weight, especially if, you're African-American. If you can just speak on that. And even John, like, let's say if you may get a Tennessee transfer and a Wisconsin transfer to, come play in your league, it seems like regardless of, what you may be doing, in the office, that recruiting may hold a little bit more weight. So if you guys can speak on that, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah, that's a good question, because, I mean, you answered it. Like, recruiting is king, right? Like, we know that there is no team without good players. They are the value. So you need people to bring that value. And the people that usually bring that value are people that align and are closely related to these players. The reason, like, I'm able to get a certain amount of players that we have here is because I can speak their languages. I listen to the same things, watch the same things, can communicate at the same level, have the same backgrounds. It's tough because some people may not necessarily feel like they flourish in the recruiting area, but are busting their job on the X's and the O's, and it's not as visible until it comes out and play, because your head coach gets all the credit. Like they'll credit assistant for necessarily like getting kids, but they really don't credit assistants for X's and O's. Not like in game. They were like, oh man, Coach K ran a great set. That could have came from John Shire. We won't ever know. But the reason why it's valued so much more, because it's more visible. They're gonna say John got Zion to blah, or Dale got Christine to where. And then like when it comes out with the X's and O's, it doesn't play the same. It's just perception.
Yeah, and I mean everybody values recruiting so much that it's hard to escape the idea of getting players. And that's why even on our side, there's so many guys that want to break into the business, and everybody talks about how to get in, how do you get in, how should I get some experience? And everybody says, get around an AAU team. You know, get around an AAU team, get with some guys. You got to be around players. Well, that's going to perpetuate some of the same things that we run into and the issues that we have and that we're talking about. Is that if we only think players straight up win games and lose games and that's that and this is everything, don't get me wrong. You need talent to win. But the most talented team doesn't win a national championship every year. The most talented team doesn't win their conference every year. If they did, we wouldn't play the games. They wouldn't pop the popcorn. They wouldn't warm up the hot dogs. Like, it just is what it is. So there is a lot of coaching that goes along with it that I don't think people take into perspective in a lot of things they hire or a lot of things they look at. But that's part of the issue. I mean, I think it's a fantastic question that you brought it up, because a lot of coaches focus so much on what guy can you give me right now. And there's even times, I think it was Aisha that put that people don't know how to hire. It's true, because there's a lot of people who don't know how to hire because they hire one guy to get one player to do one thing, and then that guy's stuck on their staff for 5 years. You know, or they got to hire him the next year, and then they got to hire a new guy that does nothing. So now I'm not saying that there hasn't been people who have had players that have worked out, because that has happened as well. I think the biggest thing is you just focus on yourself and you try to give yourself as well-rounded as possible, because a player may get you there, but once you're there, that's what keeps you there. So if you're a well-rounded individual, you're going to stay on staff no matter who you are. If you show value in not just getting players into every other area of the department, if you bring paperwork every day and you're done with it before the boss even gets to it, or he can trust you with something, or she can trust you with something, then you will provide value to your program. So how well-rounded can you be? And I know we keep going back to the same things, but be who you are and what's your current state. Do you bring value in multiple different ways? And those ways will eventually be seen.
Appreciate that.
I have a question actually for the people here. Why are we on here? Like, what are you like seeking to gain from this panel? Are you watching because you're trying to learn about race and relations? Or you trying to learn about coaching? Are you doing it to check a box because your boss said you need to watch a panel and get information? Like, why are you all on this Zoom?
Answer that first, since I just asked the last question. You know, I'm a young coach. I know Coach Lewis. I know Trav. I've been coaching for 4 years, and I'm at a standpoint, man. John, you just hit it. You know, I want to move up. I'm at the NAIA level, but it seems, you know, and it's definitely perceived as, you know, if I want to move up, man, I need a player, you know. So when I seen the topic on Twitter, I'm like, man, it's perfect, you know. Should I go back in high school and do AAU? You know, I know a lot of coaches, especially black coaches, and, you know, let's be honest, that's a popular route they take to, you know, to be an assistant, you know, at a Division I institution. And you know, I'll talk to people, man, and obviously that's not the only route. But you know, especially being young, you know, being hungry, being motivated, and wanting to learn, wanting to move up, it does seem like the most realistic at times, you know. And that was a big reason, man, why I wanted to listen to what you guys had to say. And you know, not that anything you guys are saying is new, but it's, you know, man, it's always good for someone else to reiterate, you know, sometimes what you already know. So I definitely appreciate it. But that's sort of, you know, that's sort of my background, and I'm sure it probably is someone else's too that's on the Zoom.
I respect that. I mean, it's a really good time to reflect, right? As you're watching these things, as you're studying, as we have this time this summer with COVID, are you trying to move up to be in a Division I school, or do you like want to take a different position? Like you have to analyze every single thing you want to be, because like I always tell young coaches, get in the video room. Like some people want to go into, AAU route, bring players, whatever. But I say get in the video room. Like when you're on a support staff, you do so many different things. You get so much responsibility, and basketball is super, super trendy. Everybody wants an analytics person, and everybody wants people with information. And if you have that, now you're the value. So I think there's a lot of different routes, but you have to pay attention to which route you're going to be willing to take to get you there.
I appreciate it.
I'll answer that as well. So definitely Travis, does a good job putting together and kind of getting two counterparts, like to bounce ideas off each other. Part of that is like coming on here and seeing your guys' viewpoints, because everybody faces their own issues, and I'm a white guy. I'm terrible at X's and O's right now, and I'm trying to grow that part. I'll be honest, like it's part of this conversation. But for me, being at the school that I was just at, I was very good at relating to our players, and we had another white assistant, and he wasn't really that great at it. And that's not to say that he's a bad coach, but that wasn't really his role. And that was part of my role, was being a really good player relationship builder, not to promote myself, but that's what I was really good at. And so to hear kind of like both sides to it as well, being on the men and the women's side, and just seeing the challenges you guys face, kind of the feedback you get is really good for me. Like I did the JUCO route. A lot of guys who go JUCO tend to go JUCO for a lot of years and then try to move up to being a D1 assistant. So sometimes those guys necessarily get pigeonholed as JUCO guys and can't always move up to the Division I level, if we're honest. But some guys do, and they're successful. So just kind of hearing the route that you guys take and kind of the challenges you face is part of the reason why I'm on these talks.
Yeah, that's cool, Jonathan. I mean, to actually admit like your fault is I respect that. To say that, actually I'm not that great at X's and O's, like, because we all think highly of ourselves and like usually don't admit those faults. But I think on this panel, it's a really good way to like find some solutions. I'm pretty sure there's other coaches on here that can help you develop that. I think my suggestion would be, like I said, like, get in the video room, because you start teaching yourself that. Like, go to YouTube and watch John Beeline's chin sets, or break down different offices and like write those, draw them up on fast draw. Like, just really become accustomed to doing it every single day, and then you will build those right habits to make you a better X and O coach.
We talk about it with our players. If I recruit somebody and he's a shooter, right? What do you think I want him to do? I want him to shoot. But if he comes in as a freshman and he can shoot, and he leaves as a senior and the only thing he can do is shoot, how mad are we going to be?
Yeah.
Because he doubled down on his strengths, but he didn't do anything with his weaknesses. So that's what we talk about when we're well-rounded. Like if you can say right now on June 21st, or no, 23rd, I'm off, quarantine got me. But 23rd, if you can say on June 23rd, you're not good at X's and O's, what are you going to say on June 23rd next year, 2021? Are you going to say, I'm still not good at X's and O's? Well, why? I mean, what's your excuse at that point? Because that, to me, then, and I'm not calling you this now, John, but like, that means you're either lazy or you really don't want it that bad.
Yeah. Coach John,
I think I'm on here to just learn and like network, because I've been coaching probably 15 years now, but I'm probably a bottom feeder coach on this panel. So I started coaching in junior high, worked my way all the way up to high school. Coached under Travis for 6 years at a high school. Then now I'm working on my second year as being a head coach at a high school at a very diverse school. Diverse school where we got foreign exchange students that I never ever coached before, never coached any other race but white and blacks. Now I got Asians and everything. So I'm just on here just to learn more and just to network with other coaches across the country.
Are you in the Bay Area? I see the Golden Gate Bridge behind you. Is that like from here?
No.
Okay, all right. I was saying,
that's all.
okay, because I invite any of these coaches whenever you're in the Bay, man, come by. Like, let's chat, let's brainstorm, come watch practice. I think it's always good to congregate with like-minded coaches.
I'll answer. I'm here. I've been here every Tuesday supporting Travis and the Unspoken Topics. There's been some good conversation going on, different things each time. So I'm here just to learn and to network.
Cool. And Asia, what school are you at?
This is Aisha. I'm at University.
Aisha, I'm sorry.
You saw us this past season. We came to the job. University of Kentucky.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We did see y'all.
Yeah.
We played them and we lost. Um, a shot with 2 seconds left, but that's cool. I mean, you have obviously really good staff over there, you know, and some a really successful staff as well. So I look forward to you to see you thrive in your career.
Appreciate it. And I'm a support staff role. I'm director of recruiting administration. First time the job was a thing, so I just help our coaches with recruiting, supporting it where I can. So.
Yeah, no, you have a lot of responsibility.
Aisha, how old are you?
25.
Did you play?
Yeah, I played at Radford. Graduated 2016.
Awesome. So one of the things that Aisha is doing right now is because she's still young, and this is something that I was told, and it was harder for me because I got back into coaching when I was 28 because I was still playing and I had some injuries. I was going to play till the wheels fell off, and they fell off way too quick. But one of the things, like when you really want to get into coaching and you want to get to a higher level, you got to be prepared to not make anything. It's no different than any other business that you're going to hop into. Like if you want to go and work on Wall Street, you're probably going to be an intern for the first year or two and not really make a bunch of stuff, not really make a bunch of money, not be super successful. But the best advice I ever got was be willing to take an opportunity, right? And then close your eyes and work your tail off until you're 30 and then open your eyes. You're going to be really happy where you're at, right? So realistically right now where Aisha is Aisha took an opportunity. Now it happened to be Kentucky. So it's a little bit different than everybody else's, but she took an opportunity that probably wasn't the best paying one or the best, you know, like right away where she was going to see a bunch of success. But at the end of the day, if she works her tail off and does what she's supposed to do and starts to correct a lot of those weaknesses and some of those strengths and doubles down on her strengths, she's going to be somewhere really successful. So there are a lot of people that I run into that are like, how do you get into coaching, or how do you do this, or how do you do that? But they're afraid to take an opportunity that doesn't pay well, or they're afraid to go outside their box and move. Like she played at Radford, now is in Kentucky. Like it's close, but it's not the same school. It's not maybe in her comfort zone of where she wants to be. You have to be willing to do some of those things to continue to move up.
You're in a good spot. I'm pretty sure you know Matt and all them will take care of you. You got the best player in the country on your team, so y'all all right.
I guess I'll follow her. For me, one is, you know, supporting my guy Trav and really enjoying these conversations, and specifically this one is the notion that you have to go the AAU route. I did the AAU for a long time, and I found myself coaching for the wrong reasons, where I was basically utilizing players as a way to get in and be frustrated that I wasn't getting in. So I got away from the AAU, focused more on what I genuinely love to do, which is the player development. And I've been doing that instead and really helping out our high school program out here. And when that call comes for the next level, I'll be ready for it.
I respect that, man. Cause like, you know, we have a lot of discussion. Every coach continues to kind of say, I'm trying to move up. I'm trying to be here. I'm trying to be BCS. Why? Like, what is like, bloom where you're planted. If you are happy with where you're at, then you're happy. You know, like these logos don't determine who we are. You know, like this doesn't make me any different coach from Coach Lum on here or Coach Frankie or Lou or whoever. So I want young coaches, and I even said this myself, like be patient. You know, like there's 365 Division I schools and there's a ton of other schools. There's going to be opportunities, but why rush to those if you're just seeking the opportunity and not seeking happiness and growth?
I want to build off what Mendel just said too. Is that a common phrase and theme for a aspiring young white coach also to coach AAU, or is that just a black thing?
It definitely was for me. Definitely was for me. As soon as I got hired, my head coach was like, you know, you should consider getting into the AAU. You know, you got to get players. You know, probably obviously not because of the color of my skin, but it was something that was said to me as well, just as a young coach, just getting started.
And then I'm assuming you white, Mark?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
we couldn't see, so I just wanted to double down. Because I think a lot of times, and that's why I say educating professionals and integrating cultures, because a lot of times Black coaches will take it as, well, they only tell the Black coach that. And a white coach will take it, well, they're not telling the Black coaches that. So when we have this open dialogue, we start talking about the different sides and the different routes you have to take based on race, gender, age, whatever the case may be. We get to learn like, oh, well, that's common across the board for everyone, right? So just to open that up and kind of make those things clear. And I didn't want to cut you off, Wendell, so you can.
Yeah, I said there's actually, because this kind of pertains to this topic conversation is Choi, right? Did I say it right? And he put that, like, he's here to network, but secondly, because Asian coaches are in a unique situation because they're not white or Black. So like that's something like, that's not in my present mind, but John has mentioned time after time again that like your coaching ability should always determine, your opportunities, whether, you're white, Black, or Asian, or indifferent. But we actually have a young Asian young lady on my staff, Shannon Lump, and she's our video coordinator. And like, she is a beast, dude. Like, she does every and anything that she can for this program to make us better. And I see that she might not have models in this profession that necessarily look like her at a level, but I'm going to do my best as her assistant coach to get her there. And I think that for you, Choi, that you have to have people around you that are willing to push you forward and bring you along. So I know I'm going to do that for Lum. Like, if that's the last thing I do is make sure that she gets, to the position that she wants to be in.
I'd like to take a shot at why I'm here. So first of all, thank you for doing this. Second of all, my name is Menelik Fernandez. I'm a head coach in Canada in our college league here. So the reasons for me jumping in are, first, I think Travis puts out great content and I'm happy to support anything he does. Second, similar thing with the Rising Coaches Network. So a lot of the stuff that they put out there, I jump on and I watch all of that type stuff too. But like, mainly I'm here to listen. So in Canada, the dynamic is a little bit different. And I'm not trying to say by any means we don't have racial disparities, because we do. But the dynamic is different because people are not talking about it the same way. People are not very openly acknowledging things exist. So as being an interim head coach and probably a head coach next year, I want to be a better leader. And I think the best way to be a better leader is to listen to people. Like, so I'm an interracial person, but I'm very light skinned. So I often, make the comment on here that like, I sort of pass a lot of the time. I think a lot of people who have hired me don't even really know what I am, type deal. So that being said, like, I like to listen to people with different perspectives than mine and see how it can shape the way that I can think and help me respond to people who have different perspectives so that I can engage and educate myself from it. So I think the biggest reason that I'm here is to listen and hear what everybody has to say and see how I can fill it into my own experience.
Good.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Hey, maybe you guys don't talk about it as much in Canada, but we didn't talk about it till 3 weeks ago. So it wasn't always as out in the open as it was. I mean, you look at a lot of the Twitter handles now that are now so making statements and all these other things. Like that was, Travis and I had talked about it the other day, the Juneteenth. Like, I personally, I didn't know much about it and I had to go Google it, but I'm not going to also make a statement, Happy Juneteenth, because I don't know what it is. Whereas there's a lot of people now that they wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for what happened 2-3 weeks ago. So I think a lot of what you're seeing now is new to us as well.
You would have thought like Black people just came out 2 weeks ago. Like, oh, y'all got a holiday? We celebrating that. Oh, for real? Like, oh, we got Black owned business. Oh yeah, come over here. Like, it's crazy. It's insane. You see every Twitter, every Instagram go Black for a day. You see different color flags. You would think we were brand new. Like, it's just like, what's popping? So as John mentioned, like, you're not too far away from the conversations because we just started to open our mouths about things. But it is important that we all are listening and we're all communicate that amongst our organizations. I know we take a lot of pride in making our players aware of all the things that are going on, not just, racially, but like whether it be gender issues or voting or whatever it is. Like, you want to inform the people around you to make the best decisions, to make them the best citizens they can be in this country.
100%. I agree. Thank you.
I want to build on that while we in this, and we got 23 minutes left from the time limit that I gave you guys. So hopefully we can get to where you give a few nuggets to the audience and to the people watching via YouTube and the recordings for those that watch it in the future. But obviously in the last 3 weeks, there's been a lot of professional development on integrating races and a lot of racial diversity. And I'm sure you guys have sat in a lot of different seminars. But I've constantly talked about on the different platforms that I've been on is trying to put out a grease fire with water. Like anytime you try to put out a grease fire with water, you get a negative reaction, you get a reverse reaction, and it doesn't work. And even just sitting here talking about it is almost like what a topic is, how do we get Black people opportunities, right? How do we get Black people opportunities? How do we change it? How do we make recognition to the Black community? How do we make it better for African Americans? And as a white male who does things the right way and trying to do what's best for your family, at some point it'll come into mind like, well, when did they start forgetting about us? Like, when are we gonna stop hearing this? Like at some point you find a way to be in that grease fire with water and it becomes a reverse reaction and people start to get frustrated, start to get some controversy going. So I just really want you guys to give your perspective and maybe some things that you've learned or taken note to from your institutions or personal thoughts about the Black Lives Matter and just the state of America now. So let's go with John, or Wendell, you go first. John, you can follow up.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned from my boss here, I have a Black head coach, and we have 2 Black assistants, and we have 1 Asian American, is that like no matter which room you are in, like make room at the table. That's the nugget. Make room at the table. Whether you're a coach, whether you're an administrator, whether you are the chancellor or president, make room at the table. And that's the hardest thing for people to do. Imagine yourself in a leadership position where people look like me and speak like me and have to make room for somebody at the table that doesn't. You're not comfortable doing that. But for us to move forward, we must do that. Make room at the table. And that's how we hire our staff. We have all, ethnicities, backgrounds, gender orientations on our staff, and we try to reflect that in our institution as well. But if you are in any position to accommodate people, make room at the table for them.
Yeah, and the hard part about making room at the table is because there are people who feel that limits their opportunities. But helping somebody up doesn't necessarily, helping somebody up to your level or helping somebody become better or take a step forward doesn't mean you have to take a step back to do it. It doesn't mean you fall down because I'm making room at the table. There's still room at the table. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, it shouldn't limit my opportunities as an eventual maybe head coach at my level, maybe not, because I don't know what my opportunity will ever be. But if I hired somebody at the junior college level who happened to be Black, that doesn't mean that that's one less spot for me as a coach. If I'm seeing it that way, if I'm being selfish, like it's just downright ridiculous. And to answer Travis's question a little bit more is like, I think there are so many people who are white that are somewhat intimidated by conversations like this because they are afraid that they may lose an opportunity. Like things are good for us right now as white coaches because we can be hired as white head coaches. Just is what it is. So there are people who are trying to move themselves up and they're like, well, like if there are more Black head coaches, well, then that limits my opportunities. It's ridiculous. At the end of the day, if you win games, if you do what you're supposed to do, you'll be recognized for what you do and you move up. That's how we should feel. That's how we should feel. And I agree wholeheartedly. Making room at the table is exactly how it is. And if you feel intimidated by somebody else moving up, maybe you should work harder. Maybe you should be better at what you're at. That's just my thing.
Trav talked about like this. We're just talking nuggets right now, just right and coaching and stuff. One thing I learned is that your rep is your rep. Like your reputation is your reputation. Like the things you know are known for are the things that you do. So if you want to be this X and O or recruiter, you have to do those things. I can't be known to be something that I'm not. So I have to practice on the things that I want to be so that I'm recognized in that fashion. Your rep is your rep. Your reputation is your reputation.
Wendell, what things can you do, or what things do you do to make yourself a better recruiter? Just what 2 things that you do primarily to make yourself a better recruiter? what 2 things that you do primarily to make yourself a better X's and O's guy, just in a couple statements, and then John, the same.
I think it's really important to understand pop culture. Like, I know it sounds silly, but you have to be aware of trends of what, kids and young people like. I think when you understand what the climate of music is or what's going on TV, it helps you with conversation. It helps you to understand things that you may relate to or may not relate to, and how can you guys relate to those type of things. I think that's very important. And then another thing that, John said earlier is, like, you got to keep it real. Like you got to be authentic. Like, I'm 10 toes down. I'm always me. I'm not changing who I am for a recruit, because when you get here and I'm somebody different, it's not going to work and you're going to leave anyway. Right. So you have to be who you are. And then, like, on the basketball side, I mentioned this over and over again. I love watching film, and you can get any single thing on YouTube. There are people that do the work for you. They'll do the best NCAA March sets. They'll do ATOs. They'll do special situations. They'll break down every coach's offensive, defensive packages, and you could download that and just watch and study. So I think that's one thing that makes me, I try to use to make me a better coach. And then I ask questions. I go to people I view as mentors and as leaders, and I try to learn from them because they have so much knowledge and they've actually been able to apply knowledge. Because a lot of people say, like, knowledge is power, right? But knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. Like, being able to actually use it and try to work with it is more power than just knowing things. So I spend a lot of time with people that have done it at a high level.
Yeah, from a recruiting standpoint, just that authenticity. I know Wendell just mentioned it, and I've mentioned it a couple of times, but, like, the more authentic, the more honest, the more upfront you are, the more truthful, like, the more people are going to realize it. And then from that perspective as well as investment, like, how much are you investing in the kid that you're trying to recruit? Because kids nowadays, they want to know why on everything, no matter what it is. So if you're recruiting them and you can't explain why you're touching base with them or what you're doing with them, or you're not investing enough time, and you don't get a kid, you can't look back and be like, oh man, like, he just wanted to go somewhere else. No, you didn't invest. You can't make money if you don't put money into an account. And if you're not getting you're not getting any of the interest back if you don't put any money down. So from an investment standpoint, is from recruiting at junior college, you got to cast a big net, especially at the level we were at, Division II JUCO. We played a lot of Division I JUCOs. We were in a really tough league in Iowa. Ton of great junior colleges out there, but, like, we had to cast a huge net. If I wanted kids, I had to invest more time into the kids that I had wanted than I didn't. And then when I didn't get those kids I didn't invest in, I can't turn around and be like, man, the kid just wanted to do something else. No, it was my fault. I didn't invest enough time. So I would just say, be authentic and invest in where you want to put your money, where you want to be good at. And then from an X's and O's standpoint, I do a lot of what Wendell was saying. Just, I love film. Like, I watch everything. Every set comes up on Twitter. There's YouTube channels that do everything. If you don't know something, like if you hear somebody in a clinic say something and you don't know what that means, if you Google it, you'll probably get a basketball breakdown or some sort of rising coaches clinic where they explain that. Like, there will be something out there on the internet where you can find it. So I love film, but I also love live practice. Like, if I can watch anybody else's live practice, I recommend doing it. Not just at the college level. Like, I love going out recruiting and seeing a high school practice, because then I get to see somebody else do it with different kids, a different way. Those things are really advantageous for me, X's and O's wise, because seeing somebody on the floor actually doing it, we all know, is very different than a DVD that's produced that goes to your house that you buy, and they break down the drill and they do all that stuff and it looks great. But when is it ever that perfect in your practice? Very rarely. So I just recommend X's and O's, just Googling as much as you can, watching as much film, getting to live practices. And, I guess the last thing for me, X's and O's wise, is just, once again, going back to that investment, putting your time in. You can't look at something once and then think you understand it. You can't watch one DVD and be like, all right, I got dribble drive down pat. Like, if you want to run a dribble drive, you got to watch 2 or 3 teams do it, multiple games. What are the breakdowns? Where does it go? So a lot of that stuff is just the investment that you have to put in if you really want to do it. And keeping an open mind. I don't mean to cut you off, but keeping an open mind, because there are a lot of people that hop in and they think one thing is right, no matter what, and they refuse to change their entire life. And anytime they hear a 2-3 zone or something, and they're like, oh, that's wrong, I don't want to do it. Well, keep an open mind. Listen with an open mind.
John, to a point you really sparked to me when you talk about the investment, like how much you spend on the phone or with your players, that like it's important that you serve their hearts just as much as you serve their talents. You know what I mean? Like you got to really know these kids because they come from various backgrounds and they all have various experiences. And if you don't know like what really makes them tick or what motivates them, they're not going to be as good as they can be. I know we all can see their athletic talents, but there's a lot of things that go on inside their mind and their heart that you have to really seek as well. So spend a lot of time in your office talking to your players, on the phone, checking up in on them, having one-on-one conversations in practice. I think that's just important as well.
Let me jump in, Trev, if you don't mind. EMU Eagles in this thing. What's going on, fellas? Just got a question for you guys. When you guys get the opportunity to become a head coach and, you move over and have that next step, or John, when you get that opportunity again, is the makeup and demographics of your staff something that you're going to be conscious and aware of? And even for you, Wendell, having, women on your staff or, diversity on your staff, is that something that you're going to, make a point of having, or are you just going to hire the best person available? Because, that perception out there, if you have an all African-American staff or all white staff, may, shine a negative light. So I just want to know your kind of mentality moving forward, when you guys get that opportunity.
You want to start with that, John?
It doesn't matter. I mean, I didn't want to answer Robert's question anyways, man. Just so you guys know, the reason why he said EMU Eagles was Robert played with us, or played with me for sure at EMU. But
dribbled down the court, gave you the ball.
Hey man, that's why I loved you so much. But yeah, no, just from my standpoint is diversity. Obviously, like I think my circle is very diverse to begin with. Like obviously, Robert, you and I talk quite a bit already just on the phone. Like I try to keep a diverse circle personally so that my future hires and my future inner circle that I trust is qualified and diverse. And I think that's maybe why Travis invited me on here, was because he knows that I come from maybe a different perspective than some of the other coaches that are around. I think it's something that you definitely need to take into consideration, but I think that you need to hire people that are qualified enough to begin with, and you don't need to put anybody into a box of this is why I'm hiring you. So Robert, if you guys don't know, is a head coach at Salem. If I were to take over a Division I institution tomorrow, why would I hire him and say he can only recruit? Guy's been a head coach. Like it's got to be, not only are you qualified, but you have to look at that diversity, encourage that diversity to be around, but also keep your inner circle and your trust, the people that you can trust on a daily basis, as diverse as possible as well.
I think John answered that. That's it. Same.
Any other questions before I get to just one last question on my behalf and then a recap? So Wendell, obviously you played on the men's side, you coach on the women's side. Just one or two of the glaring differences that you see. And then John, you played internationally, and now you coach on the men's side. And just one or two differences that you see from international assistant coaches and head coaches and how they go about their day and their profession and the pros and cons of it. And then Wendell, the different approaches from how the head coach and assistant coaches were when you played on the men's side to the approach that you take on the women's side. And for the biggest reason is that we have both female coaches, or males and females that coach on the female side and males that coach on the male side. So.
Yeah. To do that, because I remember that most. Like I feel like on this side that we spend a lot of time on detail, and really in investment into the most fine things with our players. I think men and women tick differently, and the more we can know, we can understand how they tick. It's a much different business. So I'm going to do a lot of things differently than John would do. And I may do a lot of things that John doesn't do at all. Like I have to manage scout players. I don't know if he has those, like I'm a training room liaison. I do all our dorm and housing, like I have some things on campus where I am taking student groups and inviting them in. Like we all have different responsibilities. And like, I think that's the biggest difference between, you know, our game. But when it comes down to the basis of basketball, we have high level players. Can they do some of the things that men's basketball players do? No, but like they can knock down a 3-point ball at a 40% clip. You like a finish around the rim around a 60% clip, and we could score 75 points a game. So therefore, I'm fulfilled by that. But the nature of the business is much, much different. And I like this side because it fits me. Like my personality, my energy, my enthusiasm, all my character traits, it works with what I want to be as a person and as a coach. And I've had so many good women figures, from my mom to my auntie to my cousin to my bosses, that like I want to work with these people.
Yeah, and from an international perspective to a college perspective, it's very different. Internet, you know, we talk about college basketball, college sports, as sometimes you hear on the media, they call it a business, things like that. I don't think, and maybe I'm just too naive, but I don't think that every coach in our business is in this just to be in it as a business. I think they do it to groom kids, very similar to what Wendell was talking about, just groom athletes, make them better people, both on the court, off the court, be an impact in their life, you know, make their life better than maybe what it was before, give them direction to their life. So I think from the college aspect, I think there's a lot of coaches that live for that. On the international side, it's very different because, you know, you're hiring and firing people. You know, you got a guy in a 10-day contract that if he don't produce, he's gone, because you can get fired in a week or two if you don't produce, you know. So I think there is a different approach to it. You're also dealing with an older set of people. You know, you're dealing with potentially 22 to, you know, sometimes 35, 36, 37-year-olds, families, adults, grown men, women, on that professional side. Whereas in the college level, you're getting them at probably their most vulnerable time, you know, the time that they're developing the most, their personalities, their opinions, their ideas. I mean, if everybody in here talks about where we were at 18 to where we were at 23, we would all kind of laugh and just not talk about it no more, because you're just a different person at times. And there's so much growth that happens in those 4 to 5, 6 years sometimes for kids. So I think there is just a huge difference in that, because of their approach is just so different. You know, professionally, you're focused on chemistry a lot more, especially at the international level, because you don't have multiple turnovers on guys or women. You don't have 7, 8, 9-year contracts in overseas. You have maybe 1 or 2. You know, I was one of the few on the team that I was on that had a 2-year contract. Like everybody else was like 1 year, and then we brought in 5, 6, 7, 8 new guys. So a lot of it's focused on chemistry, getting personalities to get along, a lot of player management, a lot of time spent off the court mentally. You do some X's and O's, but realistically, it's a half-court game that you have to make sure your team has the chemistry needed to get wins, and you have to make sure you're playing together to get anywhere. So I just think that there's a different approach to both sides of those. And then the one thing I will say is, and I know we had talked about this, somebody had said to me, what if a kid comes to college and says they just want to be a pro someday? They just want to be a pro. They just want to play basketball forever. Okay, that's great. Let me give you my perspective. I was a very high level player, led the Mid-American Conference in scoring and rebounding, went overseas, was going to play till the wheels fell off. They fell off in 6 years. I was done at 28. So I got to figure out, if my life expectancy, God willing, is 70, I got to figure out what I want to do from 28 to 70. Name me one NBA player, including the high level ones that just hoops. I mean, LeBron has a school. He does multiple things. Shaquille O'Neal runs 5 Guys. I mean, he was one of the big reasons why 5 Guys is international. He's the CEO of Papa John's. He's like an interim sheriff. Like, there is no just hoop. Like, basketball is a vehicle to take you a lot of places and get you a lot of things. But at the end of the day, we have to give a lot of these kids direction as far as what they want to do after, or what they want to do during. Like, they can be a high level player. A lot of those guys who are one and done at Duke, but if they don't invest, a lot of what they're doing at that level, that money eventually continues to fade. So we need to continue to talk about that as much as we can on our side in the college level, that people don't talk about at the international level. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
And John, and that goes for coaches as well. Like, don't limit yourself just to an aspect of coaching or this profession. You know, like I'm always on campus talking to other people, professors. I'm talking to academic liaisons, people that run organizations. Like we work in higher education, and our job is to facilitate 4 years of growth from 18 to 22-year-olds. And a lot goes into that once they step out of our gym. We have to worry about their housing, their dining, their academic, their social lives. So you want to invest in your institution so you can help facilitate all those things to make a better player and person for the person that you coach.
Great. I'm very thankful and grateful for both of you being on here. Is there anything that you want to add or leave us with before we get ready to close out?
I think this is really, really good. These series, I really appreciate that young coaches are really trying to put stuff in their bag, just like players, right? You're trying to equip your toolkit. So continue to seek these opportunities. And I think it's very important that you communicate with your peers and other people, even if you don't know them or not. Like I'll drop my information to Lou or put in the chat, hit me up, man, email me, whatever. Like I learn so much from people that I don't know because they have so many varied experiences, whether you're at the high school level, JUCO level, NAIA, women's, men's side. Like basketball is a universal sport. It's a global brand and we all care for it. So let's invest in each other as much as we invest in the business.
Yeah, and last thing, I just want to say thank you for everybody having me on. Adam, Kareem, Travis, thank you for having me on as well. I got a lot from this as well. Took some notes, listened, very closely to a lot of things that were said. But one thing that I would just give advice to is just find joy where you're at, no matter where it's at. Like if you want to be in Wendell's position, my position, some higher level or whatever, find joy in what you're at, because at the end of the day, the journey is all we really have. And so enjoy it day to day, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing. And as long as you're enjoying it now, when your opportunity comes, you're ready to go, you'll get the shot that you need. But if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out. Let me know if you need anything. And please stop complimenting Travis on this. I was uncomfortable with all the compliments you guys gave him and how much you're his friends. I just want to let that be known. And I don't want to hear it anymore. He keeps telling me about how much everybody loves this. So,
bro, and I know he's friend. I know you got a shirt and tie on, bro. You got hoop shorts under that?
No, not at all.
All right, bro. I know you, dude.
Hey, our purpose, man, at Rising Coaches, I like to say, is the tree for coaches that don't have a tree. They provide a platform for us to grow, develop, and learn. So I'm always grateful for them for giving me a platform to kind of produce my network of friends and people that I have in the business to help the basketball community grow. And our goal is to educate professionals and integrate cultures. So hopefully each week that people join on and they listen to the things that we talk about, they can do things to help themselves grow as a coach, because our ultimate goal is just to create successful human beings. And a lot of our problems in society today, unfortunately, has been race related. And hopefully we can have conversations to grow that have nothing to do with race. John, Wendell, thankful for your time. Excited to see you two both become head coaches and thrive at your respective levels. And very appreciative of the friendship that we have, and everyone else for tuning in. So I'll leave the room open for a few minutes so we can get information out of the chat. I know Wendell put his information in there. John put his information in there. Stay in touch, and thanks everybody for joining.
thank you again for coming.
Thanks for doing this,
Appreciate it,
guys.
man.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks, Travis.
No problem, man.
Another home run as usual,
Oh man, here we go, man.
Thanks, Travis.
Dale, I remember when you didn't want to be a head coach. You
Yeah,
just
man.
being
Man, it's a
now you
natural
got
progression.
conversations.
No, I never said I never wanted to. I always said like there's something
It
you
wasn't
have
on
to
the
do.
plate at the time.
Huh?
It wasn't on the plate at the time.
Yeah. And once you start to kind of actualize some things, that's within reach. You want to, see if you can experience that. But